Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am incredibly thrilled you're joining me today because we are setting the stage for a high-level strategic briefing on what is arguably one of the world's most critical geopolitical flashpoints. We are going to look closely at the data, the war games, and the highly specific strategic models that defense analysts are using right this very second to understand a potential future conflict over Taiwan.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because the stakes here are quite literally astronomical. If you've ever found yourself wondering why defense departments and global financial institutions spend so much time gaming out these scenarios, well, just look at this number. A conflict in the Taiwan Strait is projected to cost the global economy around $10 trillion. $10 trillion! That is a massive 10% drop in global GDP. To really put that into perspective, that's roughly double the economic impact of the 2008 global financial crisis or the COVID-19 pandemic. So this isn't just some regional security issue. An event here would fundamentally reshape the entire global economy.
To unpack all of this, here is our War Room briefing agenda for today. First, the trillion-dollar stakes. Second, assessing the military balance. Third, mapping conflict scenarios. Fourth, blockade impacts. And fifth, strategies for deterrence.
All right, let's start with Section 1, the trillion-dollar stakes.
Now, Taiwan's significance goes far, far beyond just its geographic location in the Indo-Pacific. It actually acts as a global silicon shield. Taiwan is responsible for over 20% of the entire world's semiconductor manufacturing. But you really have to look at the advanced stuff to see the full picture. They produce over 60% of sub-10 nanometer chips and a staggering 90% of the world's most sophisticated sub-3 nanometer chips. We're talking about the exact components powering our AI, our most advanced defense systems, and of course, our smartphones. If these fabs stop running, the global supply chain effectively freezes. That means no new phones, stalled automotive manufacturing, and just immediate drastic shockwaves to your everyday life. Now, to be clear, it's definitely a mistake to assume Beijing's strategic rationale for unification is driven solely by getting access to this tech. Things like history, culture, and pure geopolitics are actually the formidable drivers there, but Taiwan's massive market dominance makes even a highly localized crisis an immediate paralyzing issue for the whole globe.
Moving on to Section 2, assessing the military balance.
Let's move our briefing to the tools on the board. What's really fascinating about comparing these two military forces is how it reveals vastly different asymmetric advantages. When we look at the raw data from MUFG, the United States clearly leads in total defense spending, $877 billion compared to China's $292 billion, and the US has a massive, undeniable advantage in nuclear warheads and active aircraft carriers. But hold on, look at the other side of the ledger. China actually has over 2 million active personnel, compared to the US's 1.39 million. They also edge out the US in active submarines, 78 to 68. The Chinese military has focused heavily, and very deliberately, on asymmetric capabilities, things like advanced naval and missile systems that are designed specifically to challenge conventional US superiority in their immediate periphery. So let's anchor those abstract numbers to geographic reality. This map maps out recent Chinese military exercises around Taiwan. Unlike the US, which obviously has global security commitments stretching across the world, the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, can focus a tremendous amount of its modernized capabilities, air, naval, and missile systems, on a very narrow geographic area. These exercises completely shrink the window of US conventional superiority in this specific region, and that presents a formidable logistical and tactical challenge for any opposing coalition.
Next up, Section 3, mapping conflict scenarios.
So how exactly do defense experts process all these capabilities and try to predict the unpredictable? Well, analysts at institutions like CSIS use something called an escalation matrix. Think of this as the ultimate if-then flowchart, but with guided missile destroyers instead of office sticky notes. It's a strategic war game framework that systematically analyzes a potential conflict by pairing the escalating actions of China on one axis right against the escalating responses of a US and Taiwan coalition on the other.
Here are the specific steps on the ladder for both sides. China's levels range from non-kinetic gray zone operations, like using their Coast Guard to board merchant ships, all the way up to using submarines and mines, then offshore kinetic strikes, and finally, a wider conventional war. On the coalition side, we start with Taiwan acting constrained to its territorial waters, moving to an assertive Taiwan engaging borders, then the US stepping in but constrained to an exclusion zone, and finally, a wider war with the US strikes outside that zone.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when you cross-reference those four levels against each other. You get 16 distinct conflict intersections, or dyads. Extensive wargaming of these exact dyads by groups like CNS and CSIS reveals a pretty sobering truth. There is absolutely no quick victory for either side here. Both sides risk crossing incredibly dangerous red lines, and deterrence signals can very easily be misread, sparking a rapid, deadly escalation.
Let's actually use this framework to narrate a potential progression. Look up at the top left, the 1x1 dyad. This is China boarding versus Taiwan constrained. In this scenario, it's essentially a massive game of cat and mouse. The Chinese Coast Guard boards and seizes merchant ships, basically cutting off trade, while Taiwan's military remains restricted to its own waters. There's no major combat yet, but the economic pressure on Taiwan is immense. It forces them to either capitulate or escalate the situation.
Now, let's see how this builds if things really heat up and we jump down to the 3x3 scenario. Wargamers actually call this the cage fight. This is China using kinetic military force against a US military that is constrained strictly to the waters around Taiwan. It produces intense, incredibly brutal convoy battles. In the simulations, both sides take exceptionally heavy losses in warships and aircraft, and that massive casualty rate inside this restricted cage places enormous political pressure on both Washington and Beijing to widen the war to mainland targets or international bases.
Which brings us to Section 4, blockade impacts. So the crucial point here is that war games aren't just about military maneuvers on a map, they are about very real on-the-ground consequences. This model tracks Taiwan's resource inventories over a 20-week blockade. Just look at the red line. Natural gas plummets to near zero in just a matter of weeks. Coal and oil follow right along with it, dragging electricity production down to absolutely catastrophic levels. Taiwan's energy vulnerability is essentially its Achilles heel. This data shows exactly how a maritime quarantine or a blockade could be weaponized to effectively turn the lights out and force capitulation, all without a single bomb ever dropping on a Taiwanese city.
Finally, Section 5, strategies for deterrence.
The ultimate goal of wargaming isn't just to predict a war, it's to prevent it from happening at all. First, there is military deterrence. The war games clearly indicate that to ensure Beijing never sees an invasion as a profitable option, the US and its partners must physically change the Indo-Pacific military balance. This means sustaining serious investments in long-range precision-guided weapons and advanced undersea technology. It means securing more basing access in the region so we aren't putting all our assets in one vulnerable basket. It requires Taiwan to relentlessly stockpile weapons and supplies. And crucially, it requires deep, highly integrated operational planning with capable allies like Japan and Australia.
But there's another really vital layer here: legal deterrence, sometimes known as lawfare. The single best way to prevent a conflict is to deny the adversary any legal ambiguity or convenient pretext to start one. Taiwan and its allies need to strictly align their responses with international law. They absolutely have to establish crystal-clear defense standards for responding to gray zone incursions, things like drones or Coast Guard vessels crossing boundaries. By coordinating these standards in advance, they prevent the other side from fabricating some minor incident as a justification for a massive military escalation.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen the staggering economic stakes, the shifting military balance, and the terrifying speed at which an escalation matrix can spiral out of control. The tools for deterrence, both military preparedness and legal clarity, are right there on the table. So the question is, will the global community implement these strategies effectively enough to maintain the status quo, ensuring that this matrix remains nothing more than a simulation? It's a question that will absolutely define the security of the 21st century. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.